There are moments in life when you realize the world you're living in no longer quite fits. It's like wearing clothes that once felt perfect, but now they're just a little too tight, a little too heavy. And yet, you haven't fully stepped into the life your soul has been whispering to you about. This in-between space often feels confusing, even lonely. People might call it being stuck, but it's not that. This is the quantum threshold, the doorway of transformation, where even the smallest shift in your vibration can open an entirely new timeline. You are not trapped. You are standing at the edge of a quantum leap, and one change in your frequency is enough to set everything in motion. When I speak about this threshold, I'm not talking about philosophy in some abstract way. I'm talking about the very real experience many of us face waking up and realizing the routines, the conversations, the habits that once comforted us no longer satisfy the deeper pull within. It's not defeat. It's not failure. It is the stirring of new life, asking you to listen. Imagine a river that has been forced to flow against its natural current for years. At some point, the river no longer has the energy to fight. It releases, and the water begins to flow back toward its true direction. That's what this threshold is. The moment you stop exhausting yourself by trying to fit into a life too small for your spirit, and you allow yourself to turn towards something larger, something truer. Now, this transition doesn't arrive with fireworks. It rarely announces itself with clarity. Instead, it shows up as unease your nervous system, buzzing between excitement and fear. One day you feel ready for change. The next you feel anxious, doubting yourself. This is because your brain is literally running two operating systems at once. The old pathways still exist, but new ones are forming. You're not broken, you're rewiring. And here's the beautiful paradox. The discomfort you feel is not a sign you're going backward. It's proof that you're evolving. Growth doesn't begin in certainty. It begins in the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Most people resist this phase. They try to numb it with distractions, rushing back to what feels familiar, or forcing their way forward with control. But those who learn to honor this space as sacred, those who treat it as creative ground rather than punishment, are the ones who experience true transformation. Because in this void, when the old has dissolved, but the new has not fully appeared, you are standing in pure potential. It is here that miracles happen. Not because you force them, but because you finally allow them. I want you to remember something. Reality is not shaped by what you wish for. It's shaped by what you embody. You can want abundance, but if your body is still rehearsing the vibration of scarcity, the universe responds to that vibration. You can wish for love, but if you're still radiating the fear of abandonment, life will mirror that back to you. The quantum field does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are broadcasting in every breath, every thought, every choice. This is why alignment matters more than effort too. Think of a musical instrument. You can press the strings as hard as you want, but unless the instrument is in tune, the sound will never harmonize. In the same way, your life begins to harmonize when your mind, heart, and body resonate on the same frequency. When what you think matches what you feel, and what you feel matches what you do, that's when coherence appears. And coherence is where the so-called miracles happen. So how do we begin to live in alignment? It's not about dramatic gestures. It's about the quiet daily choices that tune your vibration. When you drink water, bless it with intention. When you get dressed, choose your clothing as if you are already the version of yourself you long to be. When you walk into a room, don't shrink to fit into others' expectations. Radiate the quiet confidence of the self that already knows it belongs. These actions may seem small, but they carry profound resonance. They are like votes for the timeline you are stepping into. Even your environment holds memory. The objects around you often reflect who you used to be. Rearranging a chair, clearing a drawer, lighting a candle. These are not trivial tasks. They are signals to your nervous system and to the field that you are preparing space for the new. And then, there are the microshifts, the subtle transformations that accumulate over time. A man who begins to walk with a softer but more assured posture. A woman who stops apologizing for taking up space. A person who replaces a thought of, "I'm not ready" with, "I've already started." These are not insignificant changes. They are dimensional shifts. And as you choose them, you're not only reshaping your own life, you're adding to the collective resonance that makes it easier for others to choose the same. There is a principle in science called morphic resonance. The idea that once something learns a pattern, it becomes easier for others to learn it too. The same is true here. Your evolution gives permission for the evolution of others. Every time you embody your higher self, instead of clinging to survival patterns, you're helping humanity as a whole step into a new vibration. Of course, the old identity doesn't dissolve without resistance. Sometimes it will pull you back, convincing you that the familiar pain is safer than unfamiliar joy. You may find yourself sabotaging progress, just as things begin to open up. This is natural. It's the nervous system doing its job, choosing safety over expansion. But when you recognize this pattern, you no longer mistake it as failure. You see it for what it is, your old self making one last attempt to survive. And in that moment, you can gently but firmly choose to keep expanding. This is where trust becomes essential, not blind faith, but a deep willingness to let go of the need to control the outcome. Peace is not passive. It's the most active vibration you can carry. The kind of peace that comes from congruence, from no longer fighting with yourself. When you release the inner war, when you allow yourself to trust that you are exactly where you need to be, something extraordinary happens. The transformation becomes inevitable, because becoming is not a linear climb. It's not about struggling to reach the top of some imagined mountain. It's about alignment. It's about remembering that the version of you who is already transformed exists right now in the quantum field. They are not waiting for you to arrive. They are waiting for you to remember. So pause for a moment and breathe. Ask yourself, what would the version of me who has already stepped into my next chapter choose right now? How would they think? How would they walk? What would they no longer accept? Every time you answer those questions with presence, you are dissolving into that timeline. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you're ready for. And readiness isn't something that falls from the sky. It's something you become through repeated choices, through consistent alignment, through surrendering the need to force and embracing the power of allowing. And here's the truth. You are not on your way to transformation. You are already in it. Every breath you take in awareness, every thought you redirect toward possibility, every small act of coherence is proof. The transformation isn't coming someday, it's here. So if you feel yourself in that uncomfortable space between who you were and who you're becoming, honor it, celebrate it. This is the sign you are in motion. You are dissolving the old and embodying the new. The universe is listening, watching, responding not to your words, but to your vibration. Remember, you're not stuck. You are one shift away, one choice away, one breath away from stepping into the life your soul has been preparing for you all along. And when you make that choice, when you allow that shift, you'll discover what was once impossible has already been waiting for you. 1. The dissolution of the old self. There comes a season in every life when the mask begins to crack. The roles we've played so convincingly, the skeptic who always questions, the perfectionist who tries to control every outcome, the fearful child who hides from disappointment, start to feel unbearably heavy. What once seemed like armor begins to reveal itself as a cage. And the moment you sense this, you are not failing, you are awakening. The dissolution of the old self is not a punishment. It is the most sacred form of purification. Think of a tree in autumn, shedding its leaves. To someone who does not understand the rhythm of nature, It might look like death, like the end, but the tree knows it is simply preparing for the silence of winter, the stillness in which deeper growth will take root. In the same way, when your old identities begin to fall away, it may feel as though everything familiar is dissolving. Yet beneath that loss, something more enduring, more authentic, is quietly emerging. I have walked through that winter. I know the sting of letting go of what once defined me, the roles that won me approval, the habits that kept me safe, even the pain that was strangely comforting because it was predictable. There is grief in this stage, because even the identities that limited us have been companions. To release them feels like saying goodbye to old friends, but they are friends who cannot walk with you into your next chapter. The skeptic, for instance, that voice inside that always doubted, always demanded evidence before trusting anything new. Perhaps that voice once protected you from disappointment, kept you from being misled, but eventually, it becomes a chain, holding you in suspicion of life itself. The perfectionist is another layer. At some point, striving to control every detail may have given you a sense of worth, or shielded you from criticism. Yet what begins as self-protection ends as self-punishment. And the fearful self, the one who avoids risks, clings to guarantees, insists on safety. Above all, that part of you is simply too small for the vastness of who you are becoming. To dissolve these identities is not to reject them with anger. It is to thank them for their service, and then release them with compassion. They kept you alive, but they cannot help you thrive. And this stage of your evolution is not about survival. It is about remembering what it means to live fully. This is why the dissolution often feels raw. You may wake up one morning and realize that the routines that once gave you structure now feel suffocating. The conversations that once entertained you now sound empty. The relationships that once fit perfectly now feel misaligned. And it's tempting in those moments to think something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong. What's happening is that your soul is adjusting the frequency of your life. And anything that no longer resonates begins to fall away. The nervous system interprets this as loss, even danger. That's why you may feel anxious or restless, why you may find yourself tempted to run back into the familiar. But listen closely. Your discomfort is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that the old operating system is being overwritten. You are literally rewiring, and rewiring takes time. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. For a while, it looks awkward, fragile, even vulnerable. But what is really happening is freedom. The skin was never meant to be permanent. It was always meant to be shed. You are shedding the skins of self-doubt, control, and fear in the same way. During this process, many people ask, who am I? If I'm not my old self. That is the right question. Though it is not meant to be answered with words, the answer is lived into, moment by moment. Each time you refuse to shrink back into fear, you are answering. Each time you pause instead of rushing, breathe instead of forcing, trust instead of doubting, you are answering. The new self is not built in a single revelation. It emerges gradually, like dawn, breaking through the night. Now, the dissolution of the old self is not comfortable. It can feel like being reduced to your core. You may lose interest in things that once brought you joy. Certain friendships may fade. You may feel more alone than you ever have. But that emptiness is not abandonment, it is space. And space is what allows the new identity to root and grow. In those moments of emptiness, it helps to remember this. The quantum field, the dimension of infinite potential, does not respond to who you were. It responds to who you are being right now. You cannot carry the energy of the past into the creation of a new reality. That is why the past must dissolve. That is why the skeptic, the perfectionist, the fearful self must die. Because their frequency is incompatible with the life you are stepping into. This is where many lose hope. They mistake the dissolution for destruction. They think the crumbling of old patterns means the future is collapsing. But the truth is, the collapse is preparation. Just as a caterpillar must dissolve into liquid inside the chrysalis before becoming a butterfly, you too must allow your old form to melt. And in that melting, in that surrender, the blueprint of your higher self begins to take shape. You may ask, how do I endure this stage without breaking? The answer is tenderness. Be tender with yourself as the old falls away. Grieve if you must. Cry if you must. Speak kindly to the parts of you that are afraid. Remind them that they are not being destroyed. They are being released. There is a difference. Destruction leaves you with nothing. Release leaves you with space. And space is the doorway to new creation. Another way to endure is to practice trust. Not blind trust in some distant future, but trust in the very breath you are taking right now. Trust that the dissolution itself is sacred, that it is doing for you what effort never could. Remember, this is not about forcing change. It is about allowing transformation. The leaves do not force themselves to fall. The tree allows it. In the same way, you are not here to rip away the old self with violence. You are here to surrender it with grace. Over time, you will notice subtle signs that the dissolution is working. Old habits lose their power over you. Old fears no longer grip you as tightly. A new softness begins to grow where rigidity once lived. You may even catch glimpses of your new self in a smile that feels freer, in a decision made with clarity instead of fear, in the quiet confidence of knowing you no longer need to prove yourself. This stage is sacred because it is the crossing point. The old self is dissolving, but the new self is not yet fully formed. That can feel terrifying, but it can also feel liberating. You are in the threshold, and thresholds are always uncomfortable, but they are also holy. They are where the old world ends, and the new one begins. I want you to hold this truth. The dissolution of the old self is not the end of your story. It is the end of a chapter. Yes, but it is also the opening of another. You are not being reduced, you are being refined. You are not being emptied, you are being prepared. And the you that will emerge from this space will not be a stranger. It will be the truest version of you, the self that was always waiting beneath the layers. So if you are in the season of dissolution, take heart. Do not curse the falling leaves. Do not cling to the skin that no longer fits. Honor what is leaving. Thank it for what it gave you, and let it go. For just beyond this release lies a life more expansive, more vibrant, more aligned than anything you have yet known. And when you step into that life, you will not look back and mourn the old self. You will look back and see clearly it was never who you truly were. It was only the shadow before the dawn. 2. The power of observation and vibration. Reality does not mirror what you wish for. It mirrors who you are being. This is one of the simplest yet hardest truths to accept, because we are taught from a young age that wanting something badly enough or working hard enough should bring it into our lives. But the quantum field, the living tapestry of energy that shapes our world, does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to vibration, to the frequency you embody in this very moment. It's like standing in front of a mirror. You can smile or you can frown, and the reflection will faithfully copy you. You can wish for the reflection to smile while you are frowning, but the mirror cannot betray what you are showing it. Life itself works this way. It reflects the energy you carry inside, not the words you speak on the surface. This is why transformation begins not with desperate striving, but with shifting the way you observe and feel. When you change the quality of your observation, you change the resonance of your being. And when you change your resonance, the world has no choice but to rearrange around you. I remember the years when I lived in contradiction. Outwardly, I said I wanted peace, but inwardly I rehearsed anxiety. Outwardly, I said I was ready for love, but inwardly I clung to the fear of being left behind. Outwardly, I claimed abundance. But in my body I carried the vibration of lack, and life kept giving me mirrors of those inner states. Not to punish me, but to show me what I was truly broadcasting. The shift came the day I realized that observation is not passive. It is creative. The way you see yourself, the way you feel into your reality, is not a side effect. It is the cause. In quantum physics, they call this the observer effect. The very act of observation collapses the wave of infinite possibilities into a single lived reality. In spiritual language, this means your consciousness is the sculptor of your experience. Think of it like tuning a radio. The station you want to hear is already broadcasting. But unless your dial is tuned to that exact frequency, you will not hear the music. You can beg the radio for a different song. You can pound your fists against it in frustration. But until you adjust the dial, all you'll hear is static. Life is that radio. Your desired reality is already here, vibrating. The question is, what are you tuning yourself to? Observation is tuning. When you look at yourself as someone unworthy, you collapse into timelines of limitation. When you look at yourself as someone capable, even if evidence hasn't yet appeared, you begin to vibrate with a frequency that calls new realities into form. The difference lies not in what you are doing, but in who you are being as you observe. It's important to understand that observation is not only mental, it is emotional, physical, vibrational. You can tell yourself with words, "I am abundant," but if your body is still tense with fear and your heart still beats with scarcity, then the field hears the vibration of lack, not the words of affirmation. This is why affirmations often feel hollow unless they are embodied. Words without vibration are just noise. So how do we change our vibration? Not by force, not by pretending, but by allowing ourselves to feel differently, one breath at a time. It begins in the smallest choices. The way you breathe when you think about your future, the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, the way you choose to respond to discomfort instead of running from it. These micro-observations carry enormous power because they broadcast to the universe who you are becoming. There was a time in my life when I constantly repeated to myself, "Nothing ever works out for me." It was almost unconscious, a habit of thought. And guess what? Life showed me endless mirrors of that belief. Then, gently, I began to catch myself. Instead of condemning the thought, I became curious. I would pause and say, "Is this the only way to observe myself? Could I also choose to see myself as someone learning, someone growing, someone in the middle of becoming?" That shift did not happen overnight, but over time, the vibration changed. The mirror began to soften. Opportunities appeared. Relationships healed. Not because life suddenly favored me, but because I began to favor myself with kinder observation. Observation is also about presence. When you stop rushing into the future and begin paying attention to the now, your vibration changes. Presence itself is a frequency of trust. It says, "I am safe here. I am enough here. I am not lacking." And that vibration draws in realities of peace and sufficiency. You can see this in the simplest of examples. Imagine waking up and immediately scrolling through your phone, comparing yourself to others, worrying about what the day holds. The vibration you broadcast is one of scarcity and stress. Now imagine waking up and taking 2 minutes to breathe deeply, to observe your own aliveness, to whisper gratitude for another chance to live. The external actions of your day might be the same, but the vibration is different. And because it is different, the responses of life are different. Another layer to observation is how you perceive challenge. Many people look at discomfort and say, "This is proof I am failing." But what if you observe discomfort as a signal that your nervous system is stretching into new territory? What if you saw anxiety as a sign that old pathways are dissolving and new ones are forming? That observation shifts your vibration from fear to trust, from despair to meaning. and life mirrors that shift back. Remember, reality is not neutral. It listens. It feels you. It bends itself around the signal you emit. This is why two people can live in the same circumstances, but one experiences joy, while the other experiences suffering. The difference is not in the external facts. It is in the vibration each person carries through their observation. To live from this truth requires humility. It asks you to stop blaming the world for your unhappiness and start asking, what am I broadcasting? How am I observing myself and my life? That question is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. Because the moment you take responsibility for your vibration, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a participant in creation. This is not about ignoring reality or denying pain. If you feel grief, feel it fully. If you feel fear, acknowledge it honestly. But even as you feel it, notice the observation you bring to it. Are you saying, this fear defines me? Or are you saying, this fear is passing through me, but I am more than it? That single difference in observation shifts the vibration, and the vibration shifts the outcome. In the end, the power of observation and vibration is the power of becoming. Every thought you rehearse, every emotion you cultivate, every perspective you choose is a note in the song of your frequency. And that song is what the universe dances to. So if you wish to change your life, do not start by demanding the world to give you something new. Start by observing yourself differently. Begin to feel the reality of who you want to be, not as a future dream, but as a present vibration. Walk as that person. Breathe as that person. Speak to yourself as that person. Because when you shift your vibration, reality cannot help but shift with you. It is law. It is resonance. It is the quiet, profound truth that life is not happening to you. It is happening through you, in response to who you are choosing to be. And so I leave you with this thought. You don't need to force your way into a better future. You don't need to shout, or struggle, or push. You need only to tune yourself to observe with kindness, to feel with intention, to carry the frequency of the life you long for. The universe is listening. The mirror is waiting. And the moment you align your vibration with your truth, the reflection will change. 3. The creative space of the void. There is a strange and tender place we all must walk through. A place that feels like silence, like emptiness, like standing in a room after everyone else has left. It is the void, the space between what has ended and what has not yet begun. And though it may feel uncertain, even frightening, it is in this very space that pure potential lives. When the old has fallen away and the new has not yet appeared, you are standing in the raw territory of creation. This is the most powerful space you can inhabit. Though at first, it feels like a kind of loss. Your habits no longer fit. Your old self has dissolved, and the future self has not yet fully arrived. You look around and see nothing solid to hold on to, and that nothingness is the gift, because in nothingness, all things are possible. I remember my own seasons of void. They were the times when my life looked empty. Stripped of the roles and identities that once gave me certainty, it felt as if the ground had been pulled from under me, as if I were suspended in midair with no place to land. My mind screamed for answers, for a plan, for something to grab onto. But the more I tried to fill the space with control, the more restless and lost I felt. It took me a long time to realize that the void is not meant to be filled with old structures. It is meant to be honored. It is meant to be breathed into. The void is not punishment. It is womb. Just as a seed rests in the dark soil before it sprouts, just as a child grows unseen in the hidden space of the womb, so too does your new self gestate, in the silence of the void. To live through this stage requires a new kind of trust, the kind of trust that does not demand evidence, but allows silence to be enough, the kind of trust that whispers even though I see nothing. something is forming. The void often confuses us because it feels like nothing is happening. We look at our lives and see no external signs of change. And yet, beneath the surface, entire worlds are rearranging. Neuroscience tells us that when we begin new patterns of thought, new pathways are being carved in the brain. But the old ones don't disappear instantly. For a while, both old and new are alive. This is why you may feel pulled in two directions. Why some days you are hopeful, and other days you are filled with doubt. But think about the chrysalis of a butterfly. Inside, the caterpillar literally dissolves into a formless soup before its cells reorganize into wings. To an outside observer, it might look like death, like stillness. Yet within that stillness, a miracle is unfolding. Your void is that chrysalis. What feels like emptiness is actually reorganization. The sacred alchemy of becoming. The void is also a deeply creative space because it frees you from the rules of the old world. When you are no longer defined by the habits of yesterday, but not yet shaped by the responsibilities of tomorrow, you are untethered. And in that untethered state, imagination can roam. This is the space where what seemed impossible suddenly becomes possible. Not because the world has changed, but because your old limits no longer bind you. I often think of it like standing in an open field after a long storm. The debris has been cleared. The noise has subsided. And for the first time, you can hear your own heartbeat against the wide silence. From here, you can plant new seeds without interference. You can choose not from fear of survival, but from alignment with your highest truth. Yet, the void is not easy to endure. Many people rush through it. They fear stillness, so they grasp at old patterns, rekindling relationships that no longer serve them, returning to jobs that suffocate them, numbing themselves with distraction. Anything, it seems, is better than sitting in the nothing. But when we do this, we miss the gift, because the void is not a mistake. It is an initiation. To stay in the void requires courage. It requires the ability to sit with questions that have no immediate answers. Who am I now? What do I truly desire? What is calling me forward? And though those questions may not yield instant clarity, the act of holding them, gently, without demand, allows something new to take root. It is like sitting in a dark theater before the curtain rises. You do not yet know the story that will unfold, but the silence is charged with possibility. The stage is being set, the actors are readying themselves, and soon, what was once hidden will come alive. Your void is that stage. The curtain has not yet risen, but everything is aligning behind the scenes. In practical terms, how do we move through the void? The first step is to stop resisting it. To resist the void is to lengthen your suffering. To surrender to it is to allow peace to grow even in uncertainty. Instead of saying, nothing is happening, you begin to say, everything is gestating. Instead of saying, I am lost, you begin to say, I am in transition. Second, give yourself permission to rest. The void is not a time for constant action. It is a time for listening. This may mean more silence in your day, more time in nature, more journaling, more prayer. Not to force answers, but to allow new awareness to rise from within. Third, to begin to nurture small practices of alignment. You don't need to map out your whole future, but you can light a candle and set an intention. You can breathe deeply and remind yourself that you are safe. You can choose words of kindness toward yourself. These simple acts hold frequency, and they begin to tune your vibration to the new life that is forming. One of the most healing truths about the void is that it is not empty at all. It is full of potential, full of unseen possibility, full of futures waiting for your recognition. The void is spaciousness, and in that spaciousness, your soul is free to imagine new ways of being. I like to think of it as standing on the shore of an ocean at dawn. The water stretches out endlessly, reflecting the first light of the sun. You cannot yet see the lands across the horizon, but you know they exist. You trust that if you step into the waters, new destinations will appear. The horizon is not barren, it is fertile with promise. The void also teaches you that becoming is not about doing more, but about being more. When you are stripped of old roles, when you can no longer hide behind busyness, you are faced with yourself. And that is the most fertile ground of all, because who you are in the quiet is who you truly are. At first, this confrontation can be uncomfortable. You may feel restless, unsure of your worth, without the identities you once carried. But as you stay present, you begin to notice something deeper, a quiet strength, a steady pulse of life that has always been within you. The void reveals that you are not your titles, your achievements, or your failures. You are awareness itself, and from that awareness, you can create anew. So if you find yourself in the void right now, if your old world has crumbled and the new one has not yet appeared, take heart. This is not the end. This is the beginning in disguise. Trust the silence. Honor the stillness. Let the space hold you instead of rushing to escape it. For in this space, creation is already happening. The impossible is quietly becoming possible. The seeds of your new self are already sprouting, unseen, beneath the surface. And when the time is right, the curtain will rise, the dawn will break, and you will realize that the void was never empty at all. It was the most creative, most sacred space you could ever inhabit. 4. The phases of transformation. Every journey of becoming has a rhythm. Transformation does not unfold all at once. It moves in waves, through distinct phases, each carrying its own lessons. Understanding these phases can bring comfort because it reminds you that what you're feeling has a place, a purpose. You're not lost. You're moving. And every stage, even the painful ones, is part of the unfolding. The 4 phases I want to speak about are the awakening of unease, the storm of resistance, the creative void, and the integration of the new self. Each one is an invitation to trust, to release control, to lean into what is greater than the mind can plan. The awakening of unease. The first phase often begins quietly. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. Perhaps one morning you wake up and feel a strange restlessness. The life you built, the one that once seemed satisfying, now feels slightly misaligned, like wearing shoes that no longer fit. It isn't unbearable, but it's undeniable. The conversations that once lit you up now seem dull. The habits you relied on feel mechanical. The joy you once found in your routines has grown thin. This unease is not a sign that you've made mistakes. It's a signal that your soul is outgrowing its old container. It's the whisper of life saying, there is more. Many people misunderstand this stage. They call it midlife crisis, depression, or boredom. But beneath the discomfort lies awakening. Just as a seed swells and cracks before sprouting, your inner life is pressing against its shell. That cracking may sting, but it is the beginning of expansion. In my own life, this unease arrived as a quiet discontent. Outwardly, things looked fine, but inwardly, I knew I couldn't keep living the same story. It felt like pretending. That feeling of misfit was my initiation. It told me I was ready to begin. The storm of resistance. As soon as the old self senses change is coming, it resists. This is the second phase, and it often feels the hardest. The ego that part of you built to protect and control begins to fight back. It whispers doubts, stirs anxiety, créate drama. Suddenly, your fears seem louder. Old habits intensify. You may find yourself sabotaging opportunities, picking unnecessary fights, or retreating into avoidance. This storm is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that transformation is working. When old patterns flare, it means they're on their way out. It's like sediment rising to the surface as water clears. Resistance is the ego's way of clinging to the familiar. Even pain can feel safer than the unknown. Known limitations seem more secure than unexplored freedom. That's why the mind resists. Not because growth is wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. I've walked through these storms. 2. Nights of sleeplessness. Days of doubt. Voices inside telling me I was too late. Too flawed. Too small. For a while, I believed them. But slowly, I learned these storms are not enemies. They are weather, and weather passes. If you can stay grounded, breathe, and not mistake the storm for your truth, the clouds will part. This phase calls for compassion. Don't scold yourself for resisting. Gently remind yourself, this is my ego trying to protect me, but I no longer need protection at the cost of growth. Compassion softens the storm, and trust carries you through the creative void. If you allow yourself to move through the storm, you arrive in the third phase, the void. We spoke about this earlier, that wide space where the old has dissolved but the new has not yet solidified. It feels like floating. It feels like nothingness. And yet, this is the most creative space of all. The void is sacred because it removes the noise of the past. For the first time, you are free from the weight of who you were. You are untethered, and in that untethering lies infinite potential. The void asks you not to rush, not to force. It asks you to rest, to breathe, to allow. This is the hardest instruction for many of us. We want to fix, to plan, to demand clarity, but the void cannot be controlled. It must be trusted. Like soil holding a seed in darkness, the void hides the germination of your new self. You cannot see it yet, but it is growing. For me, the void was both terrifying and liberating. There were days when I felt invisible, when the old joys no longer comforted me, and the new had not yet appeared. It was lonely, but it was also the first time I felt space to imagine, to choose differently, to listen, and slowly, I began to hear the faint pulse of a life that truly matched my essence. The integration of the new self. Finally, there comes a time when the new self begins to take shape. The fourth phase is integration. It is quieter than people expect. Often, it looks like subtle shifts. You speak with more certainty. You carry yourself with more ease. You no longer react to old triggers in the same way. You realize that the new pathways in your mind are stronger than the old ones. Integration doesn't mean the work is done. It means you are stabilizing. You are learning to live from a higher frequency, to make choices from alignment instead of fear. And as you do, the external world begins to reflect your inner change. Opportunities arrive. Relationships shift. Doors open, not because you chased them, but because your vibration finally matched them. But even in integration, challenges appear. You may be tempted to slip back into old habits. This is normal. Think of a child learning to walk. At first, the steps are wobbly, and sometimes they fall. But with each attempt, the body remembers. With each choice you make from your new self, the memory of this higher way of being strengthens. Integration is about patience. It's about embodying the new without rushing, without demanding perfection. It's about walking each day as if the transformation is already true because it is, holding the whole journey. These four phases, unease, resistance, void, integration, are not linear. You may cycle through them again and again, each time at a deeper level. Some days you feel the storm, other days the void, and sometimes they overlap. That is normal. Transformation is a spiral, not a straight line. What matters most is not how fast you move, but how gently you move. Each phase asks for the same medicine: trust and surrender. Trust that unease is awakening. Trust that resistance is passing weather. Trust that the void is gestation. Trust that integration is unfolding. Even if imperfectly, I want you to know that if you are in any of these phases right now, you are exactly where you need to be. Do not compare your journey to anyone else's. Do not shame yourself for how long it takes. Seeds sprout in their own timing. Flowers bloom in their own season. Your transformation is no different. What feels unbearable today will one day be the memory of your rebirth. What feels like confusion now will one day be the story of your awakening. You are not lost. You are being remade. And when you look back, you will see that every phase was necessary. The unease cracked open the shell. The resistance tested your faith. The void created space for something new. And integration revealed the self you had always carried within. So, breathe deeply. Wherever you are in this spiral, trust it. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming, and that becoming is the most natural, most sacred thing in the world. 5. The micro practices of transformation. When people think about transformation, they often imagine a single dramatic event, a thunderbolt from the sky that suddenly makes everything different. But the truth is much quieter, much humbler, and in many ways, far more beautiful. Real change does not usually happen in explosions. It unfolds in whispers. It comes through the small, almost invisible ways. You begin to live differently. Transformation is not the grand leap you take once in your life. It is the daily steps, the subtle decisions, the moments of tenderness with yourself that, when repeated, create an entirely new way of being. Think of rain falling onto stone. A single drop does nothing, but as the drops continue, over days and years, the stone is shaped, the landscape is carved, rivers are born. Transformation works the same way. The small practices you choose each day are like those raindrops. Alone, they may not seem significant. Together, they reshape the terrain of your life. Perhaps you once believed that to change you had to strive harder, to fight more fiercely, to push yourself into becoming something new. But the deeper truth is that lasting change is carried in gentleness, not in force. It is hidden in those micro practices that no one else sees: the way you breathe when fear rises, the way you speak to yourself in the mirror, the way you decide to pause before reacting to an old trigger. These moments are quiet, but they are not small. They are the sacred threads weaving a new pattern into the fabric of your life. Imagine walking into a room where you once would have lowered your eyes, shrinking yourself to take up less space. Now, you lift your head a little higher, not with arrogance, but with a quiet acknowledgement of your worth. That simple shift in posture is not just physical. It carries vibration. It tells the world, I know who I am becoming. Or think of the time you would have said yes out of fear of disappointing others, though your whole body whispered no. This time, you honor your truth and say no with compassion. That decision, though small in appearance, changes your frequency. It is a vote for the self you are stepping into. At first, these micro practices may feel awkward, even false. Speaking kindly to yourself, when you are used to harshness, feels like trying on clothes that do not fit. But like anything else, your nervous system learns through repetition. The first time may feel uncomfortable, the second may still feel forced, but the 100th time begins to feel natural. And one day, without even realizing it, kindness has become your default language. That is the power of micro practices. They start as deliberate choices. Over time, they become who you are. I remember a season in my life when I carried a habit of telling myself, nothing ever works out for me. It was automatic, a thought that slipped in without question. And of course, life mirrored it back, showing me endless examples of struggle. But then I began the micro practice of noticing this thought and gently shifting it. Instead of letting it define me, I would whisper, I am learning to see life differently. I am open to new possibilities. At first, It sounded like a lie. But slowly, I felt the vibration change. The more I repeated it, the more natural it became, until eventually my reality began to reflect it. This is how micro-practices work, not by brute force, but by planting seeds that grow over time. The way you drink water can become a practice. Instead of gulping it down while distracted, you pause, bless it with gratitude, and feel life flowing into your body. The way you dress can become a practice. Instead of throwing on whatever is convenient, you ask yourself, what would the version of me I am becoming choose to wear? Even the way you walk down the street can become a practice. Do you rush with tension, or do you walk as though you already belong to the life you are stepping into? These may look like small acts, but they are not trivial. They carry energy. They signal to your nervous system and to the quantum field that you are no longer living as the old self. You are tuning your vibration to the reality of your new self. The field responds not to your wishes, but to your frequency. And these practices are how you recalibrate that frequency. It is easy to dismiss them because they don't feel dramatic. But think of the way the body builds strength. You don't become healthy through one overwhelming workout. You become healthy through consistent movement, day after day, until your muscles remember what strength feels like. Transformation of the spirit works the same way. It is not one grand gesture, but countless micro-gestures repeated with intention. And here's the beauty. The smaller the practice, the more sustainable it becomes. Lighting a candle in the morning with a simple intention may not change your world overnight, but done every day, it begins to align your entire nervous system with peace. Taking a few breaths before answering a difficult email may not look like much, but over time, it retrains your body to respond from calm rather than reactivity. Smiling at yourself in the mirror may feel insignificant, but repeated, it becomes a declaration, I am worthy of my own kindness. The truth is, micro-practices are not small at all. They are profound because they bypass the ego's hunger for dramatic proof and instead work quietly, steadily, in the background. They are the steady pulse of transformation. And just like a heartbeat, you don't always notice them until you pause and realize how far you've come. So, if you are in the middle of your own transformation, don't pressure yourself to create fireworks. Don't wait for the one giant leap that proves you've changed. Pay attention instead to the subtle ways you are already shifting. Notice the times you breathe instead of panic. Notice the moments you soften instead of harden. Notice the choices you make, however small, that align with your higher self. These are not insignificant. They are the foundation of your becoming. And remember this, the universe is not waiting for you to prove yourself through some grand performance. It is listening to your frequency. Every micro-practice is a new note in the song of your vibration. And as the song changes, the world around you cannot help but respond. Transformation is not about becoming someone else overnight. It is about choosing, again and again, in the smallest ways, to live as the one you already are deep within. Over time, those choices add up to a new reality, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. So trust the micro-practices, trust the gentle repetition, trust that every time you choose kindness over criticism, presence over distraction, alignment over fear, you are building a new life. And one day, you will look back and realize that the small steps were not small at all. They were the transformation itself. 6. The coherence of mind, heart, and body. There comes a moment in the journey when thought, emotion, and action finally begin to speak the same language. Until that moment, you may have lived divided. Your mind says one thing, your heart feels another, and your body carries out a third. And when you are split this way, life feels heavy, confusing, fragmented. But when mind, heart, and body begin to harmonize, You enter a state the scientists call coherence. I like to call it communion. It is the resonance of your whole being, aligning as one. For much of my life, I lived out of sync. My thoughts pushed me toward ambition, toward proving my worth. My heart longed for peace, for gentleness, and my body carried the weight of stress, tensing itself with every step. It was like three musicians in the same room, each playing a different tune. The sound was noise, not music, and in that noise, no matter how hard I tried, I could not find peace. Coherence is what happens when the instruments finally tune to the same frequency. When the mind stops racing ahead, the heart stops aching behind, and the body stops bracing for impact. When all three begin to move together, that's when the music emerges. That's when the symphony of your life begins to play. What we often call miracles are nothing more than the natural outcomes of coherence. When your thoughts support your feelings and your feelings guide your actions, you create resonance. And resonance draws to you experiences, people, and opportunities that match your new frequency. What once felt impossible becomes obvious. What once felt like luck becomes normal. The extraordinary dissolves into the ordinary, not because the world has suddenly changed, but because you have changed the way you vibrate within it. I want to be honest, coherence does not come easily. It requires unlearning. Most of us were raised to prioritize the mind. We were taught to trust logic above all else, to silence our hearts when they felt too tender, to push our bodies past exhaustion in the name of productivity. We learned to fracture ourselves because the world rewarded the fragments. But at some point, that division becomes unbearable. You can't keep thinking one way, feeling another, and acting in a third without becoming exhausted. The path to coherence begins with listening to your thoughts, listening to your emotions, listening to your body. At first, what you hear may surprise you. You may realize that your thoughts are harsh, critical, full of fear. You may notice your emotions are heavy, burdened with grief or anger. You may feel your body screaming with tension, carrying years of neglect. None of this means you are broken. It means you are ready to integrate. Awareness is the first step toward harmony. When I began to listen, I realized my mind was constantly rehearsing failure. My heart longed for rest, but my mind told me I had to keep proving myself. And my body, it carried tight shoulders, shallow breaths, restless nights. The more I ignored these signals, the louder they became. But once I stopped fighting and simply listened, something shifted. I realized coherence was not about forcing these parts into agreement. It was about creating space for them to speak, then guiding them gently into unity. Let's imagine coherence in simple terms. Think of a flock of birds flying together. If even a few birds break formation, the flight becomes scattered. But when they align, moving as one, the pattern is beautiful, effortless. Your mind, heart, and body are like that flock. When each part is flying in its own direction, you feel lost. When they align, you move with grace. In practice, coherence begins with the heart. The HeartMath Institute has shown us that the heart generates a powerful electromagnetic field, far stronger than the brain's. The heart is not just a metaphorical guide, it is a literal conductor of coherence. When your heart rhythm is steady and aligned with gratitude, compassion, or love, it sends signals to the brain and the body, bringing them into harmony. The mind calms, the body relaxes. Suddenly, the three are working together, not against one another. That's why moments of gratitude feel so transformative. Gratitude is not just an emotion. It is a frequency that brings coherence. When you pause and genuinely feel appreciation for a sunrise, for your breath, for the chance to begin again, your heart rhythm shifts. And in that shift, your mind and body follow. You begin to think clearer, breathe deeper, and act more intentionally. In my own darkest nights, when I felt fractured beyond repair, I began with this simple practice: place a hand on the heart, breathe slowly, and call to mind something I could honestly appreciate. Sometimes it was something small, like the softness of a blanket or the warmth of a cup of tea. Sometimes it was the presence of a friend, or simply the fact that I was still alive. As I breathed into that gratitude, my heart softened. And as my heart softened, my thoughts grew less cruel, my body less tense. It was not instant, but with repetition, coherence began to return. This is what makes coherence such a gift. It does not demand perfection, it asks for honesty. You don't need to force your mind to think only positive thoughts. You don't need to eliminate every negative emotion. You don't need to control your body into stillness. You only need to bring them into conversation. Coherence grows in that dialogue. When you begin to live in coherence, life feels different. Decisions become easier because your thoughts, emotions, and instincts are no longer at war. Relationships improve because you no longer speak one thing while feeling another. Creativity flows because your energy is not scattered across conflicting signals. And health improves because your body is no longer carrying the stress of division. In coherence, action flows more naturally. You no longer have to force discipline through sheer willpower. The heart inspires. The mind organizes. The body carries out. It becomes one continuous movement, like breath flowing in and out without effort. Perhaps you've felt it before, those rare days when everything seems to click. When you move through the world with clarity, when even challenges feel lighter, that is coherence. The good news is, it does not have to be rare. Through practice, you can cultivate it as a way of being. But what happens when you fall out of coherence? Because you will. Life will shake you. Old patterns will return. Stress will sneak back in. Does that mean you've failed? Not at all. Coherence is not a permanent state you reach once and for all. It is a practice, a returning. Just like a musician must tune their instrument again and again, you will return to coherence again and again. The gift is not in never losing it. The gift is in remembering that you can always come back. So when you feel scattered, pause, place a hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself, are my thoughts supporting my feelings? Are my feelings guiding my actions? Are my actions aligned with my truth? That simple pause is often enough to begin the return. I want you to understand something deeply. Coherence is not magic. Though it may feel like it, it is not a miracle in the sense of breaking natural law. It is a miracle in the sense of restoring natural law. The natural state of your being is harmony. Division is the distortion. Coherence is the return. When you live in coherence, what others call miracles become your normal. You find yourself meeting the right people at the right time. You notice synchronicities, small alignments that guide you forward. You feel less like you're forcing your way through life, and more like life is carrying you. This is not luck. It is resonance. The universe is echoing back the song you are finally singing in tune. So if you feel out of alignment today, if your mind is restless, your heart heavy, your body tense, don't despair. This is not permanent. This is simply the call to return to coherence. And you return, not through striving, but through gentleness, through listening, through choosing one small act of alignment at a time. Coherence is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you already are when all the parts of you agree. And when they do, you discover that what you once called miracles are nothing more than the natural rhythm of a life lived in harmony. So breathe, soften, listen, let your mind, heart, and body find one another again. And as they do, you will know this is coherence. This is communion. This is home. 7. Space and environment. Also hold memory. One of the most overlooked truths on the path of transformation is that our surroundings remember us. The walls that hold us, the rooms we spend our days in, the objects we touch again and again, they are not silent. They carry the imprint of who we have been. They echo the energy of our old selves. And if we are not mindful, they keep pulling us back into the frequencies we are trying to leave behind. I remember walking into a room I had lived in for years. The furniture was the same. The pictures on the walls hadn't moved. The clutter of papers sat on the desk exactly where I had left them. And though I was working so hard to change myself on the inside, every time I stepped into that space, I felt myself shrinking back into the person I used to be. It was as though the room whispered, "This is who you've always been. This is where you belong." The truth was, I had outgrown that identity, but the space was still holding it. Environment is like a mirror. It reflects back not only what we are today, but also what we have rehearsed in the past. A chair that you've always sat in while worrying can hold the vibration of worry. A desk where you've worked yourself into exhaustion can hum with the memory of stress. Even the clothes hanging in your closet can remind you of who you were, not who you are becoming. And this is not superstition. It is resonance. Everything carries frequency. And our environment constantly feeds us signals that shape our inner state. This is why making even the smallest change in your space can have such a profound effect. When you clear a drawer, when you move a chair, when you let go of objects that no longer represent you, you are not just cleaning. You are sending a signal, both to your nervous system and to the field of possibility around you, that you are ready for a new chapter. You are declaring, "I am not the person I was when I created this arrangement. I am becoming someone new." It doesn't take much. I've seen people completely shift their inner world by making what seemed like tiny adjustments. One woman I knew had lived for years in a bedroom crowded with old books and papers, relics of a season when she was constantly struggling to prove herself. She decided one afternoon to let those papers go, to recycle them, to give away the books that no longer spoke to her. She moved her bed a few feet so that it faced the window instead of the wall. That night, she told me, she slept more peacefully than she had in years. It wasn't magic, it was coherence between her new intention and her environment. The spaces we inhabit are like soil. If the soil is full of weeds, even the strongest seed struggles to grow. But when you tend the soil, when you clear it and nourish it, the seed of your new self can take root with ease. That's what shifting your environment does. It prepares the ground for who you are becoming. And yet, many of us resist this. We tell ourselves it's just a room, it's just stuff. Why should it matter? But if you've ever walked into an old childhood home and felt waves of memory rush over you, you know it matters. If you've ever entered a place of worship and felt your body soften in reverence, you know it matters. Spaces carry vibration. They hold memory. They remind us of who we have been. For better or for worse, this is why rituals of cleansing exist in every culture. People have burned incense, rung bells, sprinkled water, sung songs, not because these acts are empty traditions, but because they shift the frequency of a space. They reset the memory of an environment so that the people within it can step into something new. But you don't need elaborate rituals to shift your space. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is something very simple. Open a window, let fresh air in, move a piece of furniture, throw away what no longer serves you. Place a single flower in a vase where there was once dust. Each act is a conversation with your environment, and your environment responds. When I was in the midst of a deep transformation, I felt stuck. I was doing the inner work, meditating, journaling, practicing gratitude, but something still felt heavy. Then I looked around and realized I was still living in the imprint of my old self. My closet was full of clothes I no longer resonated with. My desk was cluttered with reminders of work I no longer wanted to do. My walls held pictures of a person I no longer was, so I began to clear. Piece by piece. I let go. I moved furniture, created open space, and filled my room with light. And I cannot describe the relief. It was as if my environment finally exhaled. And with it, so did I. That's when I learned this truth. Transformation is not only inner, it is also relational. It is the relationship between you and your space. If you keep living in an environment that only reflects your past, it is harder to step into your future. But when your environment reflects your intention, it becomes an ally. It begins to lift you, to carry you forward. So if you are on the path of becoming, ask yourself, what does my space say about me? Does it echo who I have been? Or does it invite who I am becoming? Do I walk into my room and feel inspired? Or do I feel pulled backward into old patterns? You don't have to transform everything overnight. Start small. Clear one drawer. Rearrange one corner. Add one symbol of the life you are choosing. These actions may seem minor, but they are micro-practices of coherence. Each shift you make is like telling the universe, I am serious about this. I am aligning not only inside, but outside. And the beauty is, as you shift your environment shifts you. It becomes easier to think new thoughts when you're not surrounded by the clutter of the old ones. It becomes easier to feel lighter when your space is lighter. It becomes easier to take new actions when your environment affirms those actions. The cycle reinforces itself. I invite you to see your home, not just as a shelter, but as a partner in your transformation. Treat your environment as sacred. Honor it. Tend it. Listen to it. Because whether you realize it or not, it is always speaking back to you. And here is the deepest truth: when you align your space with your becoming, you create a sanctuary, a place where your nervous system can rest, where your heart can open, where your mind can imagine, a place that whispers to you each day, you are safe to grow. You are free to change. You are already new. So take a moment, look around, see not just the objects, but the memories they hold. Decide which ones still belong, and which ones you are ready to release. With each choice, you are clearing space not only in your room, but in your soul, and in that cleared space, your new life will have room to bloom. 8. The power of collective resonance. There is a truth many of us sense but rarely give words to when you choose to live from your higher self. You are not just transforming your own life, you are influencing the entire field of humanity. Each choice you make vibrates outward, like ripples across water, touching shores you will never see. This is what biologist Rupert Sheldrake once called morphic resonance, the idea that when one individual breaks through into a higher pattern, it becomes easier for others to do the same. Think about it. Every time someone demonstrates courage in a world soaked with fear, they create a pathway. Every time a human being chooses forgiveness over bitterness, they lighten the field of consciousness just a little. Every time you choose love over resentment, patience over haste, or presence over distraction, you are feeding into the shared frequency of the whole. Your inner coherence is not isolated. It reverberates through the invisible web that connects us all. I once sat with a woman who had gone through immense grief. Her husband had passed suddenly, and for months she could not find her breath in the mornings. Yet in her grief, she did something extraordinary. Instead of closing her heart, she kept it open. She prayed not only for her healing, but for anyone in the world who was grieving. She told me, if I can hold light in the middle of this, maybe someone else out there will feel less alone. And she was right. Her choice mattered. She could not see the strangers she touched. But somewhere, someone woke up feeling just a little less heavy, just a little more capable of moving through their own loss. This is resonance. This is how individual transformation becomes collective medicine. Science has long shown us that we are interconnected in ways our ordinary senses cannot always detect. HeartMath Institute discovered that the human heart produces an electromagnetic field that extends far beyond the body, measurable many feet away. When you are in coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and body are aligned, that field becomes more harmonious, and it entrains the fields of those around you. People standing near you begin to sync with your frequency. Just as pendulum clocks on a wall eventually swing in rhythm with one another, imagine the potential when groups of people consciously align their hearts and minds. Studies on group meditation have shown measurable reductions in crime, conflict, and unrest in surrounding cities. It's as if collective coherence creates a gravitational pull toward order, peace, and possibility. The invisible becomes visible, the intangible changes the tangible, but we don't need scientific studies to prove what we already feel in our bones. Have you ever walked into a room after an argument? You don't need anyone to tell you what happened. You can feel the tension hanging in the air. Conversely, have you ever walked into a gathering where people were laughing freely, where kindness was flowing? It lifts you before you even realize it. That is resonance at work. Your field, your vibration is contagious. And here is the humbling part: you are always contributing to the collective, whether consciously or unconsciously. When you spiral in anger, you feed anger into the field. When you spiral in despair, you strengthen despair's echo. But when you return to love, when you steady yourself in presence, when you anchor in compassion, you are offering those frequencies into the collective as well. You become a lighthouse, not forcing your light onto anyone, but shining steadily so that those lost in fog might remember the way home. It can be easy to dismiss this as too small. What difference could my single life make? We ask. But history shows us the opposite. One act of courage can topple walls. One voice raised in truth can echo through generations. One person choosing nonviolence in the face of hatred can shift the course of entire nations. And it doesn't always have to be monumental. The field shifts in everyday acts. 2. When you look into the eyes of a stranger with genuine warmth, you are shifting the field. When you pause before snapping at a loved one and instead choose patience, you are shifting the field. When you breathe deeply and calm yourself before entering a stressful meeting, you are offering coherence to everyone present. Each small act is a thread, and together, they weave the tapestry of humanity's collective becoming. I once asked an elder teacher how we should respond to the overwhelming crises of the world. Climate change, injustice, violence, division. The weight of it all can crush the spirit. She looked at me gently and said, "Tend the frequency you bring. That is your greatest responsibility. When enough of us bring coherence, the systems will follow." At first, it sounded too simple. But then I realized all large-scale change begins at the level of vibration. Systems are made of people. People are influenced by fields of resonance. The soil of collective consciousness determines what kind of structures grow. And so, when you tend your frequency, you are not escaping the world's problems. You are nourishing the soil from which new solutions can grow. There is also deep humility in this. You may never know the impact you've had. You may never see the face of the stranger who felt lighter because of your frequency. You may never meet the person who found hope because you chose to keep your heart open. But the impact exists nonetheless. The resonance continues, like seeds carried by the wind. Your acts of coherence may sprout in places you will never walk. This is why spiritual traditions across the world have always emphasized not just individual liberation, but collective awakening. Enlightenment is not only for the monk on the mountain or the sage in the cave. It is for the mother raising children with tenderness. It is for the worker who treats colleagues with dignity. It is for the community that gathers in unity. Each individual awakening feeds the whole. Each shift in frequency tilts the balance. So let this truth anchor in you. You are not powerless in the face of the world's turbulence. Every coherent breath you take, every choice, aligned with your higher self, Every act of kindness or courage, it all matters. You are participating in the great symphony of human evolution, whether you realize it or not. And when you forget, when you fall back into fear or anger, remember, you are not alone. Others are holding resonance too. The field of collective coherence is there to catch you, to remind you, to lift you back into alignment. Just as your strength supports others, their strength supports you. This is the beauty of interconnection. The power of collective resonance is not a theory to believe in. It is a reality to live. Each of us is a node in the network, a pulse in the heartbeat of humanity. As you tend your own frequency, you help tune the entire song. And one day, perhaps, we will all realize that the miracles we were waiting for were never separate from us. They were the natural result of enough hearts beating in coherence, enough minds aligned with truth, enough lives lived in resonance. So breathe, open, align, live not just for yourself, but for the whole, because every step you take into coherence is a step the world takes with you. 9. Faith and surrender. There comes a moment on this journey where you begin to understand that all the pushing, all the grasping, all the desperate attempts to control life have only made you more tired. The breakthrough does not come through clenched fists or tightened jaws. It comes when you allow yourself to soften, when you release your grip on outcomes, when you trust that life knows more than your mind does. Surrender is not defeat. It is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is the quiet realization that you were never meant to carry the entire universe on your shoulders. You are part of the whole, not the commander of it. When you let go of the illusion of control, you discover that you are carried by rhythms older than time, by a wisdom that orchestrates galaxies, by the same breath that moves through every living thing. I remember a season in my life where I fought endlessly against circumstances. Every morning I woke up with a knot in my stomach, rehearsing strategies, plotting outcomes, forcing timelines, and the more I pushed, the further peace seemed to slip away. It was only when I sat in silence one evening, exhausted and broken, that I felt a small whisper rise inside me. Stop fighting. Let yourself be held. At first, I resisted. The mind screams, if you don't control it, everything will fall apart. But slowly, gently, I began to practice surrender. I stopped demanding answers. I stopped bargaining with the future. I stopped needing proof before I could trust. And something miraculous happened. My inner storm began to calm. The world outside had not changed yet inside. I discovered a stillness I had not known for years. That stillness, I came to understand, is not emptiness. It is a frequency. It is the highest vibration you can live in. While fear shouts and control tightens, peace simply radiates. And when you radiate peace, reality begins to bend toward it. Life is a mirror, not of your frantic desires, but of your state of being. When you are restless, the mirror shows chaos. When you are desperate, the mirror shows delay. But when you rest in faith, faith not as belief in a doctrine, but faith as the willingness to trust the unseen, then the mirror begins to reflect harmony. Quantum physics has hinted at this all along. The observer effect shows us that reality is shaped by the state of the observer, your vibration, your frequency, your inner condition. These are the brushstrokes painting the canvas of your life. When you are at peace, your frequency stabilizes, and that stability invites new possibilities, as if the universe finally says, now you are ready to receive. Consider the soil and the seed. If you plant a seed and dig it up every day to check its progress, you kill its growth. But if you trust the soil, if you water it gently, if you let the sun do its work, the seed will sprout in its own time. Your dreams are no different. They do not need your anxiety. They do not need your constant inspection. They need your trust. They need your patience. They need the steady frequency of your faith. And faith does not mean never doubting. Faith is simply choosing, again and again, to rest in the deeper current. Even when the surface feels uncertain, faith is breathing through the unknown and saying, even here, I am held. I think of the river. A river never strains to reach the ocean. It does not panic at the bends. It does not resist the rocks. It simply flows, surrendering to gravity, trusting that its path will carry it home. You, too, are a river. When you stop fighting your currents, you begin to discover that life is already guiding you where you are meant to go. This does not mean inaction. Surrender is not about doing nothing. It is about doing from a place of alignment rather than desperation. It is the difference between action that comes from fear and action that arises from peace. When you act from peace, your steps are clear, your timing is natural, and doors seem to open without struggle. There is a paradox here. The more you surrender, the more powerful you become, because your power does not lie in controlling outcomes. It lies in aligning with the deeper intelligence of the universe. When you trust, you allow synchronicity to guide you. You allow unexpected opportunities to appear. You allow life to surprise you with its wisdom. Control is a cage. Trust is wings. When you release the need to force, you find yourself lifted by currents you could never have calculated with logic. And in that lifting, how you realize the truth. Peace is not the result of getting what you want. Peace is the state that allows what is meant for you to find its way. Many people fear surrender because they think it means losing themselves. But in reality, surrender is where you finally find yourself. When you let go of the false self, the anxious, controlling, striving persona, you uncover the self that is eternal, the self that is steady, the self that is rooted in love. That self has no need to manipulate reality, because it knows reality is already woven from love. Your mind will resist this. It will try to pull you back into old patterns of worry. It will whisper, if you stop controlling, you'll lose everything. But notice, hasn't control already cost you peace? Hasn't it already stolen your rest? Surrender is not the loss of safety. It is the discovery of true safety. It is the place where you finally realize that you were never separate from the whole. As you practice surrender, something subtle shifts. Your body relaxes. Your breath deepens. Your nervous system calms. This is not just emotional. It is physiological. Science shows that when you rest in trust, your body moves into coherence. Stress hormones decline. Healing accelerates. Your cells literally respond to your inner peace. The frequency of surrender is not abstract. It is tangible. It is measurable. And that peace does more than heal you. It begins to ripple outward. Others feel it. Just as a calm presence soothes a crying child, your surrendered frequency soothes the field around you. This is why the highest service you can offer the world is not frantic striving, but anchored peace. So let this be your practice. Breathe. Trust. Release. When your mind tries to wrestle with the future, gently remind it, I do not need to force, I only need to allow. When your heart grows restless with longing, remind it, peace is not later. Peace is now. When your hands clench with the need to control, open them. Literally open them. Let your body practice what your spirit knows. Everything is held. There is a freedom in this that cannot be described, only lived. To wake up without the weight of forcing, to walk through your days with the soft strength of trust, to lie down at night without fear of what tomorrow brings. This is the gift of surrender, and it is in this surrender that the new reality you long for begins to appear, not as a prize you have wrestled into existence, but as a natural consequence of the peace you embody. You do not attract by demand. You attract by alignment, and the highest alignment is peace. So, my friend, release the burden. Lay down the need to prove, to push, to control. Let your life be guided like the river to the ocean. Let your heart rest in the frequency of peace. And know that in this very resting, the future you seek is already being drawn toward you. You do not need to force the universe. You only need to let yourself be carried. And in that carrying, you will discover that surrender is not the end of power. It is the beginning of it. The quantum leap as a return. The quantum leap is not an escape from the old. It is not about erasing who you were or abandoning the story you lived until now. It is, instead, a return to your truest nature, to the essence that has always been quietly waiting beneath the noise. It is not about proving that you are worthy, but remembering that your worth has never been in question. The new self you long for is not something distant. It already exists, held tenderly in the field of possibility, the quantum field that cradles every version of you that has ever been imagined. When you breathe deeply in this moment, when you pause long enough to feel the silence underneath your thoughts, you begin to sense it. You begin to taste the truth that the new reality is not far away. It is already here, woven into the fabric of now. You don't have to strain to reach it. You don't have to force it into being. You simply have to allow yourself to live as if it is already true. Every breath you take is a vote. Every small choice you make today is a signal to the universe. This is the reality I choose to embody. You do not have to wait for a perfect moment or a dramatic shift in circumstances. The quantum leap happens in the quiet choices, the decision to trust rather than doubt, the willingness to open rather than close, the courage to love rather than fear. Think of it this way. Your life is like a garden. Every thought, every action, every word you speak plants a seed. You may not see the blossoms immediately, but the soil is already responding with patience, with trust, with steady tending. The garden begins to flourish, and suddenly, what seemed barren becomes abundant. The same is true with your inner landscape. Every act of alignment, no matter how small, feeds the field of possibility until reality begins to shift. This is the mystery and the gift you do not need to become. You need only to live as though you already are. And in truth, you are. The self you long to inhabit, peaceful, wise, expansive, is not a future self. It is a present frequency, waiting for you to step into it. The leap is not into some far-off place. It is into the depth of this very moment. You are not stuck. The idea of being stuck is only a story your old mind tells. In the quantum field, nothing is fixed. Every frequency remains available. You are always one shift away from a new horizon. That shift is not a monumental explosion. It is often something as simple as choosing a different thought, offering yourself a gentler response, pausing before reacting, or daring to hope again. I think of it like changing the station on a radio. If you are tuned into static, no matter how you twist the volume knob, all you hear is noise. But one subtle adjustment, one quiet turn of the dial, and suddenly a melody comes through. The station was always there. You only had to align yourself with it. So it is with your life. The reality your soul longs for already exists, playing its melody. Your task is not to create it, but to tune into it. And tuning in requires faith. Faith is the hand that steadies the dial. Faith is the willingness to trust what you cannot yet see. Faith is remembering that the music is there, even when all you hear is static. Without faith, you keep twisting back and forth in impatience, never resting long enough to hear the song. But when you allow yourself to be still, when you surrender your restlessness, the frequency emerges. This is why surrender is the final key. Not surrender as defeat, but surrender as alignment. Surrender is the willingness to stop micromanaging life. It is the decision to step out of the role of frantic commander and step into the role of conscious participant. It is laying down the heavy armor of control and discovering that you were never in danger to begin with. When you surrender, you don't lose your life. You find it. You stop running in circles, chasing outcomes, demanding guarantees. Instead, you allow yourself to flow, like a river returning to the sea. You stop gripping the edges of your existence, and you let the current carry you home. And in that homecoming, you discover that the universe was never against you. It was always inviting you to trust. Imagine this. You are walking through a dark forest. For hours you stumble, searching desperately for a way out. And then, at last, you stop. You breathe. You lift your gaze. And there it is, a path you could not see before, illuminated by the faint glow of moonlight. The path was always there. You simply couldn't find it while rushing and panicking. Surrender is the pause that allows the path to appear. When you live in this way, peace is no longer something you chase. It is something you carry, and that peace, that frequency of calm, becomes your greatest magnet. It draws the right people, the right opportunities, the right experiences, without strain. It is not magic in the sense of trickery. It is the natural law of resonance. The universe mirrors back to you the state you embody. So here is the invitation: breathe. Soften. Trust. You do not need to fight for your future. You only need to remember who you are. The leap you long for is not somewhere beyond the horizon. It is one shift of vibration away. It is here, in the next breath, in the next choice, in the next surrender. And when you dare to live from that place, when you stop waiting for permission, when you stop doubting your worth, when you stop delaying your peace until later, the universe responds. It always responds. It meets you with synchronicities, with openings, with the gentle confirmation that says, "Welcome home. We've been waiting for you." So let your life become a quiet act of remembrance. Each breath, a returning. Each choice, a signal. Ach moment. A chance to live as though the new reality has already arrived. Because in truth, it has. You are not waiting for the leap. You are the leap. The quantum field does not demand your effort. It invites your alignment. It does not ask you to prove your worth. It simply mirrors back the frequency you carry. And when that frequency is peace, the whole universe rearranges itself to reflect it. So walk gently now. Trust the current. Live as though you are already whole, because you are. And when you do, you will hear the universe whisper back, in its own way, through its own signs, "Welcome back. Welcome home."